Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here alongside Mike Gallagher to walk you through a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 game slate. After just a 2-game slate yesterday, we had kind of a brief show. This will be a little bit of a lengthier show as we try to walk your way through the injury report. And despite it being the start of the season, we have plenty of injuries to discuss, Mike. It's really disappointing. It's really frustrating that teams can't even get started on a healthy foot. But it is what it is. How are you on this exhausting Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah, tired a little bit. Put up 10,000 words in matchups the last 2 days because I'm a psycho. But matchups cover boy, smash, and then flag plant,
Nice.
smash. So
nice. You did get honors at the flag plant.
You were gonna take it.
Which you keep. D'Anthony Melton, my guy. Not so good.
Man.
Yeah, but I'll get back after it tonight with a 12 game.
Quick note, like you talked about it too, like all those high minutes, man, like 39 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, and wild. You touched on that in your spaces, which just as an FYI, because Mike's not always the most over the top at promoting his own work. Mike's been doing spaces during the week, and we'll be doing that in place of 3-ball this year. We're going to basically transition the conversation from 3-ball, if you've subscribed to our podcast, over to the Twitter spaces. And then we're going to do some more like digital shorts and recaps and stuff like that on the Twitter feed. So make sure to pay attention to Mike's Twitter feed for spaces, our Twitter feed for more digital content as well. All right, let's get into it.
I will remember to try to record it. So if you don't catch
it was recorded last night. So it's the same type of content. If you love 3-ball, you'll love the spaces.
And you can speed it up too, which is nice.
And people can interact more as well. So, okay, let's get into this slate. Let's start with the big news. Zach Levine.
Oh my God.
Somehow is being load managed without playing a game this season. Will miss the first 2 games of the season for the Chicago Bulls. What does this mean for the Chicago Bulls, who are already down Lonzo Ball as well?
This is bad, man. This is real bad. Knee injury plagued him last year. Not great, man. So they're really thin on the wing. They're gonna have to move guys around. Alex Caruso was called an off-ball guy by Billy Donovan. I would expect him to start and pick up minutes. He's coming off the injury report as well. So we'll see what happens with Keegan just got cleared, but he's still out, did not practice. Shout out to Fan for the notification. But we'll see more Kobe White. We're probably going to see some Javonte Green at 3 just because they're going to have to fill minutes that way. Obviously, the usage side of this, DeRozan's going to get all he can handle. Vooch will be shooting a ton of 3-pointers. We know the Heat give up a lot of 3s, so expect those 2 guys to really carry the load. I actually like the spot for Ayo Dosunmu quite a bit because they're probably going to put Tyler Hero on him, or they may not now without Levine there. So maybe it gets a little bit tougher, but the usage will be really good. But he shouldn't have to worry too much about Caleb Martin, guys like that. So I do think that it's kind of a sneaky good spot for him after being kind of down on him coming into the preseason. Yeah.
My quick notes here, the Bulls were very willing to play what you would look at as 3-guard lineups in the preseason, but really they don't view Caruso as a guard. They view Caruso just as a basketball player. Like they had Caruso guarding Julius Randle at times last year when they were spun off with injuries. So Caruso's going to start at the 2 would be my guess, but he will play some 3 as well. And they will play Kobe White. They'll play Goran Dragic. I'm still not sure this is enough to get Dalen Terry into the rotation. I think it's still a little bit fringy whether he's in the rotation or not. I think going into the season, Kobe White was the 10th man if everybody is healthy. And Billy Donovan has been talking about whether he wanted to go with 9 or 10, was leaning towards 10. So I think now this would make maybe Dalen Terry the 10th man and getting into the rotation, but they could tighten it up to just 9. As you allude to, DeRozan and Vooch are going to get all the usage that they can handle here. Ayo did not typically benefit from Zach being out a ton other than his assist rate. His usage rate barely moved. DeRozan and Vucevic, their usage rates, and Patrick Williams, very small sample on the Patrick Williams stuff. Those guys' usage rates moved a bunch. I'd expect them to see an uptick here, but tough matchup in Miami. Not a great way for the Bulls to start the season.
Dragic revenge game as well. He's pretty much a lock for rotation minutes, like decent ones.
Yeah, just a reminder, he was sort of signed with a promise that he would play around 20 minutes a game, which was what was reported. we expect that'll be the case in the role, and not much from a DFS perspective. There'll be a value there. All right, let's get into some of the questionables on the injury report. You just mentioned Sacramento, where Keegan Murray has been ruled out. We also have Kevin Huerter, who's questionable as they battle some wing and front court depth. What are your thoughts on Kevin Huerter's availability tonight?
Should be good. Went through full practice. Wouldn't expect him to get a full workload. He was going through some light stuff before getting the full practice in. Mike Brown said he wants to make sure guys are healthy, and he will sit them out if they need to over an 82-game span. So expecting him to play, expecting a teensy bit of a cap on him. Pretty much all indications are he will start, and they're going to need it with Keegan Murray out, cleared protocol, so he should be good for the next one. He will need a practice, which he should get, or at least some sort of workout there. So expecting pretty good minutes out of, I guess, KZ Okpala, who's
starting ahead of Murray in the preseason.
Yeah, and they liked his defense. They're certainly going to need the defense. I think against Jeremy Grant, Josh Hart, he'll probably get the Grant matchup, I would think. And he's got length. We saw Miami use him in certain spots before he kind of fell out of favor there. But, yeah, he's going to have to play a lot. We know Trey Lyles, though, they like him a lot. We expect him to be the backup. But it's still going to be the Fox and Sabonis show with Mitchell possibly getting a little bit of overlap if Huerter's a little bit limited, and they may run a little bit smaller. We know Harrison Barnes certainly a capable four-man, so even though KZ is going to possibly be starting, probably can't go there. Very unlikely to close. They have a lot of options with Davion, especially with the Ant Simons Lillard matchup. So you're going to want to have as many guard defenders as you can. You want to up Davion Mitchell's matchup, perhaps in this matchup more than any other one, or at least top five, I would say, with the two guard heavy approach they're going to be taking. So Davion, a slight beneficiary from these two injuries.
All right, let's move on to Indiana, where Jalen Smith and Aaron Nesmith are both questionable on the injury report. The Jalen Smith one kind of popped up out of nowhere. What are your expectations on those two, and how they could potentially impact the rotation if either are limited or unavailable? It sounds like Nesmith is, even if available, it sounds like it would be a pretty limited role.
I'd be pretty shocked. Didn't go through contact according to Rick Carlisle, so I'd be really surprised if he doesn't play. We saw early in the preseason Ben Mathurin would sub in right behind Buddy Hield. That has changed as Nesmith has been out. So I don't know if Mathurin's going to get enough minutes. Obviously, that could change if Jalen Smith sits, because they could just run some smaller stuff, could certainly get away with it in the matchup. But yeah, probably can't go there on Mathurin yet. I don't know what's up with Jalen Smith, but we know they'll play O'Shea Brissett, and they like Terry Taylor. Terry Taylor's been really a big Swiss Army knife for them for how they want to use him in the front court. So he'll basically slot up behind. They do have James Johnson.
They have so much front court depth. They also are obviously willing to play Miles Turner at, alongside another big. They did that with Sabonis for so long. So you could even see scenarios where if they were without Jalen Smith, they could cover by playing like Miles and Isaiah Jackson together. Daniel Tice is not going to be in the rotation to start the season. So, it's very, very deep in the front court for Indiana. Yeah. So, and I don't know that it's necessarily a spot that you're going to be attacking on the slate where there's already a lot of value because things are priced down pretty much.
Yeah. And they're going against the Wizards, like I was saying. So Kuzma, Rui Hachimura are not very big fours.
Yeah.
So you could certainly get away going smaller if Smith's out. I think O'Shea would be in play, but not expecting him to run away with the minutes.
Yep. Okay, let's look at New Orleans. Jackson Hayes is questionable and on the injury report as well. The question for me would be, is Jackson Hayes for sure a part of the rotation if he's healthy? Because this is a very, very deep team. How would his status impact things?
First of all, way ahead of schedule on this questionable tag, so I don't think he's going to play. He's supposed to be out for pretty much most of the month, if not all of it, based on the initial prognosis. So, but yeah, as you mentioned, from what I saw, I don't know if the clip's old or not, but I was looking at this Pelicans promotional video they were putting out with some practice clips, and I didn't see him out there. It's probably just old, but just want to throw that out there. So, yeah, they've got enough depth. They like Najee Marshall. They've used him as a 4. Obviously, Trey Murphy's good. They've got Dyson Daniels. Maybe they can get him in the rotation. So they certainly don't need to rush it. We know Larry Nance has been subbing in behind Valanciunas. Larry Nance could close even over Valanciunas in a spot where they may want to against the Nets. You want that switchability against KD and Kyrie and those guys. So curious to see how Valanciunas holds up today. But yeah, like you said, I don't think he's playing. I don't think he needs to play. His minutes are going to get really cut down. They want to kind of give more spacing for Zion. So we saw him really kind of step up in the middle of the season. But it's just such a bad fit for the way this offense is going to want to function with Zion out there.
And you can see how big this team is with Brandon Ingram and Trey Murphy as two guards on the depth chart here. So there's plenty of room for you slide out Jackson Hayes. You just slide guys up positionally. Devontae Graham probably gets minutes as a result because you're just sliding guys up positionally. And so that's kind of the way it'll work without Jackson Hayes. And that would be my expectation. Maxi Kleber, Q tag for Dallas. Kleber is a guy that we've talked a lot about in the past because we've expected a really big role from him. This year, a little bit different. They bring in JaVale McGee. They bring in Christian Wood. They have a little bit more depth in the front court, so we might not see as many Maxi Kleber center minutes as we've seen in the past, which is when he's been valuable from a DFS perspective. If he were unable to go tonight, how would that impact things for Dallas?
It would tighten things up kind of like a sneaky bit because no Bertans, no Ntilikina. Those guys would have been candidates to be the 10th man in the rotation. So you would have Luka essentially backup list. I don't think they're going to have Campazzo.
They have I don't know what the Campazzo status is. They just signed him.
Yeah, so I don't know if he's going to be available. McKinley Wright's a 2-way. I don't think he's going to play. They like Josh Green. They'll just stagger Spencer Dinwiddie. So, man, it could be really high on the Luka minutes. Same with Spencer Dinwiddie. They've got Tim Hardaway Jr. And then, like I said, if Cleveland doesn't play, like they are really, really thin. So that could really be a sneaky opportunity for Christian Wood, like in a significant way. We know they play Maxi Kleber a lot at the 5 spot. They will play Dwight Powell a little bit, but Wood's been pretty good on the glass. Teams haven't been covering him very well. Like the Jazz, weren't respecting his 3-point game. So if Kleber's out, I think Christian Wood could be really sneaky. Getting minutes against that second unit for the Suns could be a really good spot. They don't have JaVale McGee anymore. Revenge game for him. So I could see Maxi Kleber being out, really boosting up Christian Wood's minute ceiling in a matchup I actually kind of like for him with, getting the non-8 minutes, probably almost all of them, and, pretty good amount of usage as well. So, yeah, could be an 8-man rotation possibly if Kid wants to play it tight and win this game. And I think he does. So, it could be a really sticky spot for fantasy value.
And just a reminder, we all fell in love with Christian Wood from a fantasy perspective when he was a reserve player getting high fantasy points per minute, way back when in the Detroit days. And he's going to be in that role this year. And he's going to be paired with a competent ball handler at all times. It's, Luka or Spencer Dinwiddie are going to be on the floor at all times. Both guys very good at running pick and roll. So this could be a nice year from Christian Wood, even though he's not technically a starter. Okay, let's get into some impactful out or doubtful tags. Grizzlies, this is kind of a big one. Again, like the Chicago Bulls, starting the season off on the wrong foot. No Zaire Williams is the expectation. No Dylan Brooks is the expectation. And this is a team that is not super deep. Remember, no Jaren Jackson Jr. to start the year. They lost Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton in the offseason. How are they going to tackle, they brought in Danny Green in that trade along with getting a first-round pick, obviously. But they have a lot of injured bodies. So what does the rotation look like for a team that usually likes to try to play 10 guys without Dylan Brooks, without Zaire Williams?
Yeah, so the first question you ask yourself is, if he plays 10 guys, how's it going to go? And I would think Conchar starts. So that means you're going to have John Morant, Desmond Bane, Conchar, Senti Aldama, and Steven Adams. Behind that, obviously, you've got Ty Jones. You would automatically assume David Roddy is going to get the backup wing minutes somewhere. Jake LaRavia would be behind Senti Aldama for sure. And then, I think they're going to have to play bigger and run Brandon Clark at the 4 and play kind of wings with those rookie guys in Roddy and Conchar, and then play Xavier Tillman. That would be 10. Just to run that down again, Tyus Jones, Roddy, LaRavia, Brandon Clark, who have been has been a center 2, is going to be the power forward because of necessity in a matchup against the Knicks where they could use the size, and then Xavier Tillman would be behind Steven Adams. So really funky rotation. If they did want to go 10, if they did not want to go 10, Tillman and I would say Roddy would be candidates to come out, and that would be great for Tyus Jones, great for John Conchar. Bane, I'm not worried about. Santi Aldama, I don't think
Bane is great either way.
Yeah, Bane's great either way. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Love him, but yeah, we know Jenkins sticks to this 10-man rotation if he can, if he has the personnel. This is like a true test here. Like if he really goes 10, we just have to figure out how to give him 10-man rotation unless the only is not available.
Yeah. And obviously, if you've paid attention to our social, we're both big fans of Desmond Bane. I will not be singing on this episode of the Established Run NBA Injury Report Analysis Show, but this is a really good spot for him too, because the Knicks, the best things about their defense are probably rim protection, right? With Mitch Robinson, and so Ja is probably, it's a little bit of a tougher matchup for him, who gets a lot of his points in the paint and at the rim, compared to somebody like Bane, who can get them all at all levels. And the Knicks' second unit, which Ja's going to get or Desmond's going to get staggered into a little bit more, is going to be weaker defensively than the first unit this year, would be my expectation, especially with no Quentin Grimes to start the season. And so I think both Ja and Desmond, who are going to play a lot of minutes staggered away from each other, because these are the only two guys who can create shots, have really, really big upsides tonight.
Yes, someone's going smash here for sure.
Okay, let's get into the Raptors. We lauded the Raptors' moves in the offseason for creating a little bit more depth. Here we are opening night, and there's no Chris Boucher, there's no Otto Porter Jr., there's no Khem Birch. So some of the depth has been eaten away at. What are your thoughts on how that impacts a Raptors rotation that usually is pretty tight?
My first thought was, I think that Boucher tag is BS, just to throw it out there. Again, we got to honor it, but don't be surprised if we see a flip-flop on that. If we do take them at their word and it is doubtful, man, pretty tight. They're going to have to run a lot smaller. We're going to see Delano Banton really pick up some of those backup guard minutes, because they can't play those huge lineups that we like to see with Boucher and Precious at the 4-5. Precious could really take advantage here in a matchup. They are going to need the size. So, and it's almost like, do they just change their rotation and put him out there? Probably not, but Precious, I could see really running away with minutes without a lack of post protection against Mobley and Jared Allen, who's not really a post guy, but killer lob threat. So I think Precious could really pick up some minutes. Maybe we see Juancho Hernan-Gomez get in the mix. Thad Young's minutes should be pretty safe. Subbing in probably pretty early when Scotty Barnes comes out early there. But yeah, basically Banton, Precious, and Thad, I would expect them to pick up a pretty good amount of minutes, certainly a higher minutes ceiling. We saw Fred VanVleet get a lot of minutes late in the preseason, despite some concerns about keeping him down. So we're already back to, is Nick Nurse going to play these guys 40 minutes, it feels like, and we're in game 1 of the season.
Yeah, it didn't take long to get there. Let's go to Houston, where we're all interested in seeing the fantasy potential. Houston was one of the big darlings of the preseason. They played really, really well, at the 4th best offensive rating, the 4th best net rating of any team in the preseason, led by improved efficiency from Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green, and a surprise breakout from my guy, Tari Eason, who might get into the rotation tonight. There were some questions coming into the season, but no Jayshawn Tate, no Ty Washington. How does that impact what you expect to see from Houston tonight?
Yeah, that's going to move a couple things around. One, Torrey Eason, if we had assumed full health for this team, he was kind of the 11th man. He was still running based on where they needed it for guys missing time. So he didn't really crack the rotation yet. It just kind of broke that way with guys missing time. Guess what? Things broke this way. Jayshawn Tate hurts himself in the last preseason game. He is elevated to the backup 4 spot behind Jabari Smith. And then also without Ty Washington, that should add more ceiling to Josh Christopher and Jayshawn Nix. I don't know if they're comfortable playing Nix like any minutes, honestly.
I think Nix is a question mark. We have him projected for like 10, but I think it's a real question mark as to whether he's in the rotation or not. And I've debated taking him down further. They could basically end up just playing, because they have so much front court depth, they could end up sliding Eric Gordon to a 2 and just basically playing Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green, Josh Christopher, Eric Gordon, and then playing, Gordon some at the 3, but Garrison Matthews, KJ Martin at the 3, Jabari Smith, and Tari Eason at the 4. And then at the 5, which we should also talk about, there's some rumors about Bruno Fernando possibly moving in the starting lineup over Alperen Şengün.
Yeah, 2 things to add. They want on-ball defense, right? You're going against the Atlanta Hawks. You need on-ball defense against DeJounte and Trae Young. And, yeah, I've been talking about this a long time. I've been moving Alperen Şengün down throughout the whole fantasy draft process, because his coaches are kind of crapping all over him because he doesn't fit their scheme. They want to have a role man. They want to have their guards set up offense, create spacing, and Şengün doesn't really do that. He's really been stagnant to their offense. So their remedy for that, at least according to Kelly Iko, and again, there's been a big drumbeat on this, that Şengün comes off the bench. They start Bruno Fernando, revenge game against Clint Capella. It's pretty clean. I kind of said Şengün is like a very, very, very poor man's Jokic. So you're kind of just giving up the fact like, okay, let's just play the poor man's Jokic version in our second unit with one of the guards on there and run the offense that way. So as you've been saying, like that helps his rates. Obviously, the minute ceiling could be down. You have to obviously give Bruno Fernando minutes if he's starting.
Yeah,
so
that's the first question for me is what do you think would be an appropriate minutes projection for Bruno Fernando if he's starting? And do you think that also means if he was to start, that means it's a full 48 between Fernando and Şengün, no small ball center lineups for Jabari or Tari if they start Bruno?
So I think there's another factor on this is Jabari Smith is also returning from injury. He hurt his ankle on October 2nd. He was out in the preseason since then. Off the injury report, he's going to play. But first NBA game, when you were missing multiple weeks of action, chances are his minutes could be cut. And, they may not want him to be a center in this return too. So I'd probably put it in the 40s for like true center minutes. So we definitely would have to up Fernando. Again, we haven't really seen that look because Jabari was hurt. It was a look we saw a lot in the preseason where they would run Tari at the 4, Jabari at the 5. They've mentioned they want to do that. So got to possibly consider it. But I think they're going to want to run Bruno. Obviously going against Capella and Okongwu, you're going to want some size out there. So it should be pretty heavy center minutes there. So we would have to bring Bruno up probably like, I want to say 17, 18.
I was even going to say 20.
Yeah,
as a starter, I think.
I feel like I'm always down,
maybe,
but yeah,
and maybe 25 for Şengün, and then maybe 3 or like 20 and 26, something like that. I think Şengün. If you are a Şengün owner, I actually think it's a huge increase in his value if he's coming off the bench and split away from these guards who are going to be ball dominant, going to take a ton of usage. And like you said, he's going to be better against second unit guys. That's where he was so successful last year. He doesn't have the same sort of verticality as Bruno, and against the Hawks, you need some verticality. You need some verticality to defend them as well with the lob game with Clint Capella and John Collins. So that one is one to monitor. I don't think Fernando would be a great play on a slate that's already has a lot of value, but it could move things around there for sure. All right, Detroit, no Isaiah Livers. It sounds like they're going to get Hamidou Diallo back, but they're already without Marvin Bagley. So how do things shake up? No Alec Burks either. How do things shake up for Detroit?
Yeah, they're going to put pretty small here. They're going to run Corey Joseph likely behind Cade, and then they're going to be putting Killian behind Jaden Ivey, Hamidou Diallo at the 3. Probably mix it up a little bit for their 4 guys. We've seen Jalen Duren probably sliding right behind Isaiah Stewart. Probably there's a chance we get some Stewart at the 4 minutes here too. So the front court's pretty thin because they're going to have to run so small without Livers there. We'll see if they bring in Braxton Key or Kevin Knox. But, the minutes floor should be pretty good on Bojan coming off an injury, so he won't play too much. But, it's pretty straightforward. We know Casey also likes to run not necessarily 10 like a Jenkins thing, but he'll run a clear second unit is a routine he's been usually running on. So those minutes floors should be pretty high for a lot of these guys.
My best bet of the day, I bet this last night. I think it's at 3 now, but I bet Magic plus 3.5. I think Magic money line is also good here. I think the Magic are a lot better than Detroit, like a lot better than Detroit, like a whole lot better.
Franz Boogie, man.
I was really surprised they were getting points there for what it's worth. Okay, no Victor Oladipo for Miami. That's something we've been accustomed to over the years, but they are a little bit thinner this year without adding a power forward in place of PJ Tucker. So losing Victor Oladipo does, thin out the rotation a little bit. What are your expectations here for how the Heat deal with things tonight?
Yeah, probably go pretty small. We talked about that small Bulls backcourt that they're going to have in general. So you could basically block in Gabe Vincent as the backup to Lowry, Strus backing up Hero, Duncan Robinson backing up Jimmy Butler, and they'll probably run Haywood Highsmith. They really like him out there. Possibly we see some Bam at the 4 minutes. Probably don't need to go there against the Bulls. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Probably like a 9.5 man rotation with Haywood Highsmith being the last guy there. So we should see Gabe Vincent kind of benefiting from not having Oladipo. But Tyler Hero, I actually like the matchup. He'll probably see a lot of IOs, assuming I think he can really put it on him. So you guys could talk more about that later. But interesting spot here for the Bulls, just running out of bodies again.
Yeah. And then on Strus and Duncan Robinson, those guys have played starters minutes in the past. It appears that Tyler Hero is going to move into that starting rotation this year. And so we've got their minutes expectation down. But I do think if no Oladipo and, the issue at the 4 against this Bulls team, you can play those guys comfortably at the 4. Or Jimmy at the 4. Like, you can play small against the Bulls. They're going to play Patrick Williams and Javonte Green and maybe Derrick Jones Jr., probably not, but like they're playing those types of guys at the 4. So if they wanted to cut it down to 9 and have those guys play and get into the mid-20s, that's possible. I don't think it makes it super DFS relevant, but just a note there that I think it's possible they could cut out Haywood Highsmith. And I think we're a little bit away from Nikolai Jokic, who looked good in the preseason, but I don't think he's ready to crack the rotation. And I actually think he could even be maybe even behind Jamal Cain, who played really, really well.
Yeah. Really well.
Yeah. Shout out to the social team of the Miami Heat for the one-on-one video of Jimmy and Jamal, 2 former Marquette guys going at it. All right. Other injury news that you should have known, but if you don't, we'll fill you in. Big returns. Zion Williamson is back, baby. What are your expectations for Zion tonight?
I had a little bit of an injury, purely precautionary. Went through full practice, was ramped up to that practice. Should be good to go. We have an over on him. Feel pretty good about it. Really strong matchup here. Love it. I'm excited. I think he's got a shot to play low 30s. Hopefully, please stay healthy, Zion. The NBA is better with you in there. But yeah, definitely one of the more exciting returns of the night.
Yeah, Zion return versus Ben Simmons return in another game that I bet as well. I also have Pels money line tonight and Pels +3 as well. And then other returns.
We should probably hit Ben real quick. Actually, I didn't write Ben down, but
there is a potential, maybe a minutes limit. It was unclear. Nash indicated that he had not decided if it was a full go yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Ben around 30 instead of like 34, 35. The caveat here being no Joe Harris, no Seth Curry, really thins out a team that has a lot of spare parts, essentially. So talk us through Brooklyn.
Yeah, he looked pretty good as far as athleticism goes. Certainly rusty. Certainly the shot's never going to be there. But yeah, I think he's got a shot at like low 30s. Definitely a pretty good floor. You mentioned not having depth at the wing. They are like kind of forced into playing Ben, Patty, and then their main guys up the middle. KD, Royce, Kyrie, Thomas, those guys are gonna have to play a pretty good bit. So he almost has to play a pretty good amount of minutes. So really fun game. This is one of my favorite games to watch today for good reason.
Yeah, and Edmund Sumner are going to be available. You might actually see. There's a chance you see him tonight. There's like you could mix and match some of the back end pieces of this rotation. SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander back for OKC. A little bit of a surprise when we heard the initial injury timeline that we thought it might keep him out to start the season. He's expected to be back. What are your thoughts there for Shai in terms of minutes expectations?
Yeah, went through practice, should be pretty much good to go. I would expect somewhat of a cap. Mark Daigneault said that he was like really working out and was ready for like a huge role and then got hurt, and it was minor from what he was saying. I think that timeline was kind of just vague. So I think he's going to be pretty healthy here. So yeah, I could expect a pretty big game. Hate the matchup. Going to see a lot of Jay McDaniels. Jay McDaniels is now 6'11", so putting a lot of length against the NBA's best driving guard, at least based on volume and efficiency too. He shot really well too. But that's obviously going to damp down Giddey a little bit. Hate the matchup for Dort against Rudy Gobert's rim protection. And then other than that, we'll see Poku probably start. Justin Fans guy, Jalen Williams should be in the rotation as well. Certainly a lot of usage coming off the table, though, if SGA is anywhere close to his former self.
Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. back in action for the Denver Nuggets, who have big title aspirations this year. We'll see how far they can go if they can stay healthy. What are your expectations for Murray and Michael Porter Jr., and if there will be any limitations to start?
Yeah, so the old quotes from a couple months ago were like 25 minutes, and kind of I think that they were hoping to get him up to 30, but his leg and his hammy / they call it a hamstring injury initially. That should be something that keeps him in check. So he's probably looking at like 25 to 28, maybe 30 if things go well. So hopefully he's okay. MPJ's look great. I thought the last couple of games he moved on really well.
Yep.
Definitely expecting similar. I mean, the guys had 3 back surgeries. They're not going to play him a lot of minutes after so much time off. So, yeah, expecting pretty similar minutes. They've got enough bodies right now.
They're very deep.
Bruce Brown's been fantastic. Big usage for Bones in the preseason. They like Devon Reed a bunch. They still got Jeff Green. They're playing DeAndre Jordan over Zeke Naji as well. Should note also that Mike Mullen basically did confirm that DeAndre Jordan is going to be the backup center, which is really sad. And then also it's the second unit is going to be, as noted on this depth chart here, Bones, Devon Reed, Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, and DJ. So that'll be probably a 10-man. So again, takes a little bit of upside, especially if they want to play Bones. And also the second unit killed the first unit in practice. So I think if things we've seen Malone do this all the time, where he'll play a second unit. So if the second unit comes out swinging, I could see some upside coming off. Should mention as well, Nikolai Jokic had a big ice pack on his shooting wrist. Called it a quote new trend with this injury. That's been his kind of buzzwords on the subject. But
he looked fine. He looked fine though playing through it. He had one game where he didn't shoot at all. That had me very nervous. And then the next game he looked totally himself. So
yeah.
I trust him. He's never going to sit. He just hates not playing. So, but keep an eye on it in terms of if you see Jokic's numbers are shooting down, there's a reason that it could be the case this year. Some oldish news that we want to make sure that you're aware of if you're prepping for the slate or considering betting stuff tonight. Lamello Ball is out for Charlotte. They are really thin. Along with the injury stuff, James Bouknight got, I think it was his 4th DUI or DWI
with a gun
is outrageous. Just incredibly outrageous and irresponsible. And Miles Bridges is not with the team this year because of an ongoing investigation into domestic assault. So this Hornets team is about as bad a start as you could have. It's about the only silver lining if you're a Bulls fan is that things haven't started like the Hornets here. What are your thoughts on how the Hornets make up for no LaMelo Ball? And they have very, very limited guard depth here.
Yeah, pretty clean 9-man for me, with the starters being Rozier, Kelly Oubre, Gordon Hayward, PJ Washington, Plumlee backed up by Nick Richards. Maybe see some PJ at the 4 to possibly get TJ Thor in there. Definitely seeing a lot of Cody Martin off the bench. Dennis Smith Jr. probably picking up the non-Rozier minutes and probably not much else. And we've seen Jalen McDaniels sub it into 3 a lot. So, pretty straightforward 9-man. We know Clifford's comfortable running 9. So I expect those guys to play a lot. Great matchup against the Spurs, a team that likes to give up a lot of paint points. So I could see PJ Washington getting off to a hot start. Gordon Hayward returning from knee injury, never considered serious, just banged knees, and they were really, really careful with him. So I could see Gordon Hayward having a big game, probably matching up mostly against Keldon Johnson on the offensive side. I expect Keldon to get PJ Washington stuff on the other end. But Rozier, Rozier is just going to get all he can eat, man. Your guy. So expect him to really dominate against Trey Jones, Josh Primo. They do not have any good on-ball guard defenders right now on San Antonio.
Yeah. Bogdan Bogdanovic for Atlanta is the reports have been grim in terms of him. We haven't really heard anything other than he's just not ready, and he's not going to be ready for a while. This is a team that traded some of their depth in the pursuit of DeJounte Murray this offseason. So losing Bogdan Bogdanovic to start the season certainly tests things. What are your expectations on how Atlanta's rotation looks like tonight?
Pretty tight in the backcourt. We're going to see a lot of Trey, a lot of DeJounte. Certainly see probably a lot of Justin Holiday. Hunter, they'll pick up the minutes. They're going to probably play Jalen Johnson, and we'll have Clint Capella and Okongwu pick up most of those center minutes. I don't know if they're going to go down Aaron Holiday. I think they probably will.
I think Aaron Holiday is the primary guard.
Yeah. Not a lot, though. So you're not really going there. But, yeah, they've got enough depth. But really, the takeaway is baby, a lot of usage on the table here for Trey and DeJounte. Those guys were not affected by each other. It was really the other guys in the preseason that were taking the hits, as those guys just hit upper 20s usage rates consistently. Trey even more so in some games. So those guys are going to cook. We know we love this matchup against the Rockets. So someone's popping off, whether it's Trey or DeJounte. You guys could talk more about it on the DFS.
And that's one of the things to note is that Bogdan Bogdanovic would have been another usage creator, shot taker that could have stagnated or competed with them. They would probably never have all 3 on the floor together, would be my guess. They'd probably have 2 on the floor together most times, but instead it's going to be one of Trey or DeJounte on the floor most times. Certainly they'll start and they'll close together. And that's going to lead to a lot of opportunity for both of those guys, surrounded by lower volume kind of floor spacing guys. Justin Holiday, DeAndre Hunter. Obviously, John Collins can take on some usage. But Capella is very limited in the usage he can take on. Okongwu is very limited in the usage he can take on. They're big upside for the Atlanta guards here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The one question I wanted to get before we get out of here was in chat asking about the Orlando guards. There's no Markelle Fultz, no Gary Harris. There's also no Mo Wagner tonight. Greg the official asking if you think Cole and Suggs can get into the mid-30s in minutes due to the lack of guard situation. What are you expecting from Orlando tonight?
Yeah, I think so. Franz will play too. We saw that a lot in the preseason. They started Franz at the 2 in one of the games when they were really short.
Yeah, they're willing to play Franz at the 1. Franz can be considered a guard for them. And I think that one of the reasons I think they're going to be much better this year is I think they're going to get rid of these RJ Hampton minutes that have been some of the worst in the NBA.
They're bad.
Yeah, but go ahead. Suggs is a full go. I wouldn't expect mid-30s. I think that's a very heavy expectation for Suggs, even though they say there's no limitations. But what are your thoughts on Cole Anthony and Suggs in terms of their minutes allocation tonight?
Yeah, I think Cole's minutes are pretty solid. I definitely have concerns about Suggs. Just returned from practice, says he's been able to do everything they asked him to on his rehab, or not really a rehab, just I guess recovery period from the knee injury he had against Dallas in the preseason. But I think Cole could get up there, man. Mid-30s is a high ask for sure, but I think he could get up. I think he can play a bunch.
I see it for Cole. I see kind of, it's unclear early in the season if teams will play 9 or 10. I see very clear 9 if they wanted to, and 10 if they want to include RJ Hampton. But you basically just play Cole, Suggs, Ross, and Franz as your, 1 through 3, really, and then at 4, you have Paolo, but you can also take some minutes from Paolo or Chuma Okeke at the 3, and then your 5 is completely Wendell Carter Jr. and Mo Bamba. There's an easy path for a 9-man rotation if they want it. If they want to play RJ Hampton in a 10, that's also possible. I think he is the 10th man if they're deciding things. Okay. I know you had a note on Portland. They're pretty thin. No Gary Payton, no Olivier Sarr, no Trendon Watford, but I don't know that, other than just noting there's probably more starter ceiling minutes here available. I don't know if there's much more to note on Portland. Did you have anything to add?
That's really it. Is that there could be a lot of minutes available with not having Gary Payton. We've seen Keon Johnson play a bunch, really subbing in a lot, really early. We know Dame loves to play the full first quarter when he's healthy, so that'll be a really big indication of how healthy Dame is. If he plays the full first, you got to feel pretty good about Dame.
Perfect. All right. That'll do it. Pretty tidy for a 12-game slate with a lot of news and a lot of information. We're in and out in around 40 minutes or so. Hopefully you enjoyed. We will be here, as a reminder, Monday through Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern. Every day there are NBA games, we will be here breaking down the injury report analysis show. At some point in our season, we'll bring along our good friend Justin Fan in as well into the mix. But we will be here Monday through Friday. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get notifications whenever we go live. If we produce other content as well, make sure to follow Mike Gallagher on Twitter at Mike S. Gallagher and get notifications when he goes live with the spaces. So you can get some of that post-NBA analysis, post-NBA games analysis and hangouts with favored beat writers around the country. Sometimes Adam Schefter even pops in because Gallagher's a big shot. And make sure
Dylan Betances also was hanging out last night.
Betances as well.
He'll be on for you baseball fans. He's a big fantasy guy. He'll be on one of the shows.
Dudes who throw gas and miss bats also coming on the spaces with Gallagher. So make sure to follow his Twitter for more information on when those go live. If you're interested in joining us and following us behind the paywall, we'll be live at 5 o'clock Eastern today with another edition of Establish a Show. It will be myself and Gary Hartman breaking down how to approach the slate from a GPP perspective. If you are interested in looking at ways to join us, you can go to the subscribe page on our site, establishrun.com/subscribe-MBA. You can see we have player props packages, DFS packages, so on and so forth to get you acquainted and behind the paywall and into our Discord with lots of good folks who are very sharp talking about ways to play DFS and strategies for tournaments and cash games, as well as those coming up with unique ways to beat the props market on top of the props that we're already delivering. I think we've listed off 7 or 8 already today. I'm about to hop off this, get some food, and dive in for more, hopefully. But yeah,
I'll have some first quarter. I've got some first quarter bets I'm gonna put in there later.
Oh man, so. Here we go. All right. So for myself, for Mike Gallagher, wish you the best of luck in the games tonight. We will see you tomorrow with another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. Take care, everybody.